Welcome to the WIPS podcast, inspiring and empowering women to take the stage and up their game in the public speaking arena. My name is Chantal Bossé from Shabus, Leaders for Your Presentation, Public Speaking, and AV Needs. Enjoy the show. So hello, everyone. My guest today is Michael Sherlock, and she is from Philadelphia in the United States. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining me. It's really a real pleasure to have you with me today. And I'll just jump right in. What's your work or business so our listeners can learn a little bit more about you?
You bet. Well, first, I tell people that what I do for a living is I develop leaders and sales professionals all around the globe.
Nice.
That's what I'm most passionate about. And as I worked through building this business and what it looked like to be a speaker and a writer primarily, I kept saying, what is it that makes me different? And I always come back to the fact that usually I'm shocking people. My name is a little shocking. The fact I have crazy colors in my hair is a little shocking. But I like to shock people in order for them to step back from where they are right now and see what their true potential is as a leader, as a sales professional. And sometimes that transcends into their individual lives, their personal lives. So, that's why I always say it's fun, it's shocking, but it's definitely going to be memorable.
Oh, and I'm sure. And you know what? It's well worth it. We only have one life anyway. So might as well live it to the max.
Let's have some fun.
And even though talking a little bit to you, I do have my own thought about this. Would you consider yourself shy or outspoken?
I don't think anyone has ever described me as shy. Ever. But it's funny because your question was interesting to me because it's shy or outspoken. And I think that there's kind of a mix of all that. There are times that I'm shy. I've just joined this different networking group in Philadelphia, and I find myself walking in the room at times a little hesitant. I'm used to being the person in the room that people seek out, and it's been a long time since I've had to do that. And so I'm like, wow, there's a little part of that. And then yet there's other pieces of me that I'm very comfortable on a large stage. I'm very comfortable having conversations. I'm comfortable saying what I believe. But I think in all of us, we have all these pieces that are mixed up together. And I think that's what's so glorious about it.
I totally agree with you. And that's what I like about that question in particular, because more women tend to stop and say, well, I think I'm kind of an in-between, or it depends.
Yes.
And I really want listeners to realize that whatever we see in people, they have a different story inside. Absolutely. Sometimes, and it makes a whole lot of difference.
Oh, it so does. It absolutely does. I always say you never know what goes on behind anybody else's four walls.
That's it.
Let's give everybody a break,
Oh,
maybe that person was crazy to you, at the drive-thru. Maybe they had a bad day. Let's give them a break.
Oh, exactly. And I realize that you have a lot of experience. You were mentioning the stage and everything. What about was your first time that you were asked to speak in public?
I don't remember a time that I didn't, which is so strange. I mean, as a child, I was always up on stage. I was acting. I was doing dance. But when you posed that question to me, it put me back into the 6th grade. And my school that I went to, my grade school, they built a brand new one, and they picked me and another one of my classmates to receive the key to the new school.
Wow.
And we had to speak in front of the whole school. And I remember thinking at that moment, wow, this is different than me just acting or performing or playing my violin or whatever I did, tap dancing, whatever crazy thing I did.
Right.
This is about me commanding a room. And it was a powerful turning point for me because I think it gave me even more guts to try and do things later in life.
So I gather it was a good first experience then.
Yes, it was wonderful. And it was really a beautiful moment. And I remember thinking even then, and I still think now, like, why did they pick me? Why did I get to be picked? And what an honor to be picked. And, to really sit back and say, every time somebody calls and asks me to speak, wow, like, thank you. What an honor to be somebody that you want in front of your team, your company, your organization.
You're
That's a
right.
great gift.
It is. It is. That's when we get to share valuable insights, information, but we should always remember that we need to be thankful for that, to have the opportunity to do it.
Absolutely.
And throughout that career of yours, I'm sure you probably had your either challenging moments or some experiences that were not as good as the other ones. Do you have one that you could share with us?
Yes, and there's always things that go wrong, but I have two quick stories. Well,
I'll
try
ahead.
to make them quick, but I have two. One was just a few years ago, I worked for a company and I was part of a very large corporate strategy change. We were moving an entire company, actually multiple companies that were under one large company, and we were starting to move them in one direction. So a lot of change, a lot of stress on people. And so there were four of us that were vice presidents, divisional vice presidents, and we were kind of changing what parts of the country we were covering, which parts of these business units we're covering. And so one day I get this whole new group, and I pull them all together. There's 100 and so people, and I bring them, into the headquarters, and I've got this spiel down, that I've always done, talking about welcoming them in and how this is going to be great. And I realized there was so much agitation in the room. Like, people were uncomfortable in their seats and they were looking angry. And finally I stopped and I realized I needed to listen to what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
And so somebody said, I have a question. And they started just yelling at me and telling me, this is horrible. These are all things that are bad. Why is this happening? You guys are terrible.
Oh, wow.
And I remember, oh my gosh, if these people had tomatoes on their tables, they would throw them at me. And it didn't matter the fact that I wasn't the cause of their pain. I represented the top tier of the company.
Yes.
And that was my responsibility, was to stop and not worry about the slide deck I have, or not, to be defensive, but to really listen. And so I had to throw everything out that I had planned for 2 hours of meetings and just listen. And it's a very unique situation, but it taught me a lot about watching my audience differently. I've always been good at reading them if they're not on tune, or maybe there's questions, but this was something more that sometimes you uncover, depending on your topic, things that hurt people or that are highly volatile and emotional. And you can skim aside it, but nobody's ever going to have that message stick with them. Sometimes you have to be willing to move outside. So that was probably the worst.
But you're so right that reading the room in that case was very valuable, because instead of just trying to stick to what you had in mind, you made sure you were addressing their fears and why they weren't happy with the situation. So
yes.
Probably made your life easier.
I don't know, because they were a very challenging group, but many of them came to really appreciate, just being listened to. So, it had a good ending, but it was one of those where I had to take that on myself and say, okay, this is maybe not about me personally, but I have to know, because to these people, 100 people in this room, it is personal.
It is.
And that was one. Now, the other story is a little funnier. So this goes back, a couple decades. And I worked for this company that was a student travel organization. So it's called People to People. And so that company sends student groups all over the world. So my job was, in essence, sales. So I traveled around the country, and I spoke to groups of high school and junior high school, and sometimes sixth grade students and their parents, to convince them to send their kids with us overseas for a lot of money. And so I would travel like 3 weeks at a time, be on the road, and I'd be speaking anywhere from 150 was probably my smallest room. A little over 1,000 was probably my biggest, and everything in between.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Hundreds and hundreds of people. And so, you kind of get your own shtick, you get your own jokes, where to place the jokes, you got the roll going. And so I was nearing the end. I was almost done with the whole sales season. I'm in Boulder, Colorado. I've got probably 300 people in this room. And I always would say, this program to let your student go with us will allow them to stretch their legs, or spread their wings. It'll allow them to, see the world in a different way, right?
True.
So instead I said, this will allow them to spread their legs.
Oops.
I did not know that I said that until about 4 sentences later, because I had my spiel, and then all of a sudden I looked and I saw people with their hands over their mouths giggling. And all of a sudden my brain caught up to what I had said, and I stopped and I go, wait, did I say something wrong?
Did I really say that?
The whole room just erupted with laughter, and I put my head in my hand, on the where the microphone is, the podium, and I just kept saying in my microphone, spread their wings, stretch their legs, spread their wings, and it just the laughter caught up, and so after that everybody stopped laughing. I said, okay, let's pretend I never said that, we'll move on. And afterward I had so many people come up and they're like, that was hilarious, I love how you did that. I'm like, I did not do that on purpose. Whatever. But it was, and then that, coincidentally, that was like my largest percentage sign up after that.
Wow. Well, lesson learned.
But it was fun because it also reminded me it's okay to make a fool of yourself.
It is.
Just go with it, because people are uncomfortable if you're uncomfortable. But if you're willing to go, oh my God.
But that's a good one. Oh boy, I can just imagine.
That still sticks with me today, obviously.
And imagine now we're laughing at a challenging experience, yes. But I guess you probably had also some great memories. Do you have one in particular?
I think that to me, there's so many different opportunities when I speak, because now I speak more, I've done so much speaking as training in large companies that I work for, and I've trained, I can't even tell you how many, I have no concept of how many I have. And yet I remember almost everyone. And a couple years ago, I was speaking to a group in Ireland, and it was a great dynamic group. I loved them. I've met many of these people. I was having such a ball, but I was talking to them about a different sales approach. And I could just see this one guy in the front of the room, and his arms were crossed, and he's and I could just tell.
That's not good.
But to me, what's fun is that, to me, it caught my eye, and then I love it, because I love to, when I speak to groups, I want them to be interactive.
Yes.
I want to have me speak a third of the time, and 2/3 of the time it's about what those people want, and I can steer it back to what the mission is for the meeting or the training. But he said, so I kind of got to the end of my little spiel, and I go, okay, now I'm going to stop for a minute, because there's a handsome gentleman in the first row here who clearly doesn't believe a thing I say. And he kind of nods his head, and I said, tell me your name and, what you're thinking right now. And it always shocks people, because I'm not afraid to go right in after somebody who doesn't believe me, because that's just a joy. And he goes, it's real great that you say all this, Michael, but you don't know the Irish people.
Ah, okay.
And I said, great, tell me more, which coincidentally is the name of my first book. I'm like, tell me more. What do I not know about the Irish people? Well, we're very private, and we won't do that. We're not going to give this information. And I let him go and go and go, and people around him are nodding. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what, let's role play this. And he was uncomfortable, but I said, no, I'll be you. You be the worst example of how my way will not work. Throw everything at me. And we had a ball, because I just kept, using the sales strategy and, very nicely and calmly. And, he's like, but I don't tell you that, and I won't answer that. And so we had so much fun. And all of a sudden he looks at me, he goes, I guess it would work. Maybe I'm just the right way.
Oh, wow. That is priceless. It must have been a joy to realize how much transformation went through his head.
Exactly.
Oh,
It
wow.
was so fun, because at the end he's like, maybe the Irish aren't that different. And I said, the thing is, at the core, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
So, a sales approach, especially, people often get nervous in sales training because they're afraid you're going to try and force someone to do something that they don't want to. And That's not the case. If you're an ethical person, that person who walked in your door or who, called because of your ad or whatever, they have an interest. Your job is to help bridge the interest. And if that results in a sale, great.
That's it.
And if it doesn't right then, great. But the whole key is it's not about the sale. It's about the interaction and how we do that and the respect we show to one another.
Oh, I totally agree. What a great story. I love that story. That's great.
He still stays in touch. I love it.
Oh, that's even better.
Absolutely.
So now, my famous question, and we're all women and sometimes we're self-conscious and everything. What one wardrobe tip would you share with women that want to take the stage and still be comfortable, or let's just say comfortable with themselves?
For me, I found several years ago, and it's become part of, it might have been a little bit of midlife crisis with me when I started coloring my hair in funny colors, and I have really crazy fun shoes, and those are kind of my trademarks, so I really enjoy those. That's something that helps me stand out, and I feel very comfortable in that.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's wherever you feel the most comfortable. Your audience will always know if you're not.
Yeah.
And it's not just because you're wearing Spanx that are 2 sizes too small, which I've done.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And Spanx where it puts the girls up in the wrong spot and they're coming out, you got to watch those things. But it's really about whether or not you can get up in front of people and not worry about what you're wearing. Because it doesn't matter as much as your message. And that takes, I don't know, it just takes a different energy. And for me, it was really important is that I don't always wear a suit, or dress. Usually I wear dresses on stage, but not always. In fact, I've done things where I've shown up in my, my cowboy boots and my jeans and a, silk blouse, because that was still appropriate to where I was.
That's it.
But it was shocking enough for the message, and I felt like $1 million. And that's the difference.
Oh, I totally agree. What a great tip. Just making sure we feel great with ourselves.
Absolutely.
And finally, what would be your one tip to help empower women that want to take the stage?
Practice.
Oh.
Practice. It can't be said enough. I'm very comfortable myself. I could get up on stage right now and ad-lib something. I've always been able to do that. But what I find is as I'm trying to hone my message, as they relate, especially in my first book and my second book coming out in the fall, what I found for myself, and I had to really look at myself in the mirror, was when I first started going out there, I didn't practice enough. Because I felt like I've always been able to go off the cuff. I've always been able to train and, get dialogue going. But my core message has to be practiced. So there's a great book by Jane Atkinson that's it's about the I have it right here on my thing about the keynote. I'll find it here in just a second. But it's really about having your story succinct. Kind of a great story to open, a great story to close, and 3 bullet points in the middle. That you kind of pull the stories through.
Exactly, because the more precise we are, the more powerful the message will be. And you're so right. I always tell my clients, you know what? It's practice at the power of 3. You ask me my 3 Ps?
Yes.
Practice.
Yes.
And the shorter your talk, the longer you should practice, because that means you have to be laser focused on what you'll be saying.
Yes, that is so true. I think that is more true than I think I've ever realized, because I've led so many full day trainings that when you get a 45-minute keynote on stage, you're lucky if you get that 45 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's down to 30 and you're like, what am I going to do? I listened to a fabulous speaker, Sean Aker, who talks, his book is on the happiness factor.
Okay.
Phenomenal book. He researches happiness. Phenomenal book, phenomenal speaker, but he was just at a conference last fall, and his time was so condensed that he was trying to talk so fast.
Oh, yeah.
Only to have the same speech in one. And I could see everybody around us. We felt like we were, you felt for him. Mm-hmm. He was so fabulous. You'd listen to him anytime. But I remember thinking, if he could have just condensed a little bit and dealt with the time just because that was comfortable, he could have still gotten all the power in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I'll follow him anywhere. He's that good, and his message is that great. But to your point, the shorter your topic and message and time is, the more prepared you have to be to adapt, go with it, and make it look comfortable. Because
Absolutely.
if somebody said, look, we know we gave you 2 hours, but you only have 20 minutes, and I've had that happen.
Oh, that was a huge cut.
Huge cut. And, I'm like, you're still paying me. It works. Then I did that, but I worked the room differently afterward. And I condensed my talk, and it was my brain firing on every cylinder to try and get it to be as short and powerful as I could, and make people want to get, when I got off that stage, to come find me afterward and say, I want to know more.
Exactly. So it's a win. If they come and see you, then you've been laser focused enough to trigger that little questioning. Oh, I want to know more. As soon as we get there, well, we have won in a way, because at least we got their attention.
Absolutely.
Oh, Michael, it was wonderful to have you around with me. And we'll be sharing your links and information with listeners, so they'll be able to follow you around and make sure that, they go and see your bright and colorful hair, which I do love, by the way.
Thank you very much. I'm a little blonde and green at the moment.
And it looks terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And we'll have listeners go and follow you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell us what you think by commenting, and even share with your own networks to inspire and empower others to do public speaking.